All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's community group, Freedom Thinking Community Group. The date is the 13th of January 2025. It's been a really horrible, minging day today in Cumbria. I don't know what it's been like for the rest of the world.
I've
Yeah,
actually had a nice day, but I've been inside, so
yeah, it's been just, but I've been underneath a caravan fixing plumbing after this week's freeze. So all the plumbing's busting my sister's caravan, so I've been doing that. All right. Before we start, I just want to get a few things out of the way. This is a via donation event. If you wish to make a donation, please could you make a donation to via PayPal to info@freedomthinking.co.uk. I'll put a link to that in the description. And if you're watching on catch up and you're watching this on YouTube, you click on this on YouTube and you wish to make a donation, doesn't matter when it is. If you click on this in 3 years' time and the whole world's changed and that thing's happened, whatever that thing was that changed the world, that's happened. Yeah, this was recorded before that moment. If you still want to make a donation, I don't know how you'd pay. You'd probably pay in some kind of other cryptocurrency, I don't know, or silver and gold. We take silver and gold. Please feel free to get in touch with us via that new gizmo that we communicate with. Sorry, sorry. And also we have a via donation 3-day retreat coming up, and that is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of February, and that is called Ocean of Freedom, where we will be hoping to guide people towards the ocean of freedom that lies at the heart of all people, where people truly get to wake up and realize the magnitude of who and what they actually are, how reality, start to get glimpses into how reality actually works, and in doing so start to live a nicer life. So that's what that event's always about. That's what this event's about as well tonight. But it'll be 3 days dedicated to it. We are putting adverts for that on our Facebook page, on our Telegram page, and on our WhatsApp page. So if you want adding to any of those, contact us at info@freedomthinking.co.uk. Give us your telephone number and we will pop it on.
that's everything. Well done.
You asked me to be really concise with that.
The concise bit wasn't about the gizmo and the different currency in 3 years' time, but
Yeah, but you got to make preparations for that change. Yeah.
completely confused me anyway. So should we start as we always do and see if anyone's got questions or
Yeah.
if things have come up for people in the week?
Questions, reflections, and observations. We like to make these personal. Oh, before we do this, if you're watching this in catch up and there is something as a question you want to ask, but you can't make it on Monday night, please put your question in the comments. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Well done.
Thank you.
I
All
think
right.
I think I'll go again if that's all right.
Go down.
It's becoming a weekly thing we starting this, isn't it?
We call this the Dan event now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was in the middle of some kind of personal turmoil last week, like with my anxiety and horrendous intrusive thoughts, and I just thought I'd share where I'm at now, really. So I feel like that I'm feeling a lot better than what I did last week. And I think out of everything, the thing that sort of helps me is just reminding myself to be kind to myself. Let things happen, try not to control everything. I think a lot of the stuff that I've learned probably over the last week about myself is that I like to over control absolutely everything. And just I can kind of see my thought process about everything now going into the right direction and sort of thinking, just thinking, yeah, do you know what? What's happened? I'm quite in a way grateful for what's happened, because I can kind of see the other side of it now, I think. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to learn to be kind to myself. Because my mum made a good point the other day when we were there, and she said, because usually I put on this 30 big bollocks kind of like, you know, like nothing phases me, everything's like, everything's okay. And the past week I would probably say I've sort of like learned to open my compassion goggles, is what I've called them, just to have a bit more nice, just to look at the nicer things in life, I guess, which has helped again massively. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to learn to be kind to myself and not be so hard on myself. I think Jen said that last week about being kind to yourself and things like that. So yeah, that really helped that. So I appreciate that, Jen, to be honest. But yeah, that's it. I've had a bit of a crappy day today, but I'm not disheartened by it or anything like that, because I think after last week's conversation, I'd rather be present with it to try and not figure it out, but just to sort of let it happen and be kind about it. Because when I was telling myself to like stop thinking about this or stop acting in a certain way, it wasn't helping. But now I've sort of grasped the point of saying, oh, right, whatever, like carry on, happen, just do what you need to do, and it's really like sort of subsided in a way. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment.
Nice.
Well, thank you.
Nice,
Thank you for
buddy.
sharing.
Yeah, cheers, dude, for opening that.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that learning to be kind, like someone could say it to you, but it has to come through insights. There's obviously something you've seen through this experience that's helping you be kinder to yourself when you lose sight of that place that you found within. You lose sight and you get caught up and it feels terrifying. Kindness during that time is kind of bound to make it last less time than if you're hard on yourself and you're beating yourself up, because it's almost like if somebody else was having a hard day, we'd often be kind to them. Like you can see they're really caught up in their head with whatever it is, however out there it might feel, but we're often kind. With ourselves, that's often harder for us to spot. So it's a really lovely thing to start to see. And I think the more that we realise that, it comes and it goes. And I think it sounded like you've kind of almost got gratitude for the experience you've had over the last week, because it's meant that you've got to see something about yourself. You've got to see, I can be quite controlling and wanting to manage things. So it's like light has been shed on some unhelpful things about your character. The only thing I'd say with that, we often then think, right, what should I do about it? But just allow it to kind of be seen and then keep on living. Don't now try to go and work on that, because by going to work with it, we keep creating it. But I really think it's cool that you've allowed yourself the space to just feel and notice. So I'm really pleased. I'm glad you show up at group, because I think sometimes when people aren't feeling very good or feel disheartened, they don't think they want to show up. They don't want to see people. They sort of keep themselves to themselves. And so often when we do show up, something happens. We just
yeah.
settle. So yeah, thank you for not hiding away when you don't feel good.
No, so I appreciate it, because I feel like that it's nice to, I don't know, it's just nice to have that sort of support and community, I suppose. I think it's community is probably the biggest thing for us all, just to be able to sit and not have any sort of expectations or judgments, just being able to sort of share how we all are with each other, I guess. Just before I'll be quiet again, the one, that's what I forgot to say. The I can't remember where it was, and I don't know if I was listening to a podcast this week, and I can't remember where it was. But the thing with the kindness also was that this person mentioned that it's inbuilt into us how to talk to I think a scared puppy. So if you approach a scared puppy like really like sort of gentle and very sort of kind and sort of like a bit sort of like are you okay? Like, come, do you want to come and see me? Like, that was the where I got the kindness from. Like, that's what I'm doing to myself. Like, it's as if I'm talking to myself as if I am a scared puppy. Like, instead of going, come here now, what are you doing? Like, instead of being aggressive, just being kind. But that's yeah, that's where I got that from.
Nice, Dan. Nice. That's really nice. That is really nice. You know, we have lived as though our realities are somehow separated from our beliefs, from our intentions, from our worldviews. We've kind of lived in a time when we've believed that reality is separated from those kind of things, separated from thought. And this has never been the case. You know, and this is one of the things that we're starting to wake up to now, that our realities are not separated in any way from our mind, that reality is a creation of mind. And so, you know, this is something I've struggled with over the years, especially before 2013, and sometimes to this day, is this, come on, sort your frigging life out, Ellery. You know, and the beating myself up for the way I feel. But what you've just described just now is something that I discovered for myself. And when I discovered that I don't need to beat myself up for the way I feel, and in doing so, all I'm doing is prolonging the agony. In fact, I'm creating more suffering through beating myself up. Thought creates reality. I create this. You're not good enough. You're doing this all wrong. God, do you not know better than this? Blah, blah, blah. So-and-so wouldn't do this. You know, if I think those thoughts aren't kind of uplifting thoughts. They're thoughts that are beating me down. So how am I going to feel? I'm going to feel more beaten down. They're not the way to find peace. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm so grateful that I discovered that point, that that reality isn't separated in any way from our mind. You know, and this is again, like I say, this is one of the things that we're starting to wake up to, that mind and reality are inseparable. They are one. One. Reality is a consequence of something called mind, both on a personal level and on a universal level. So with that in mind, it does allow us to, who was I speaking to earlier on this week? Speaking to somebody, and they were saying how they were, one of the things that they had discovered through this conversation was that they got to the point where they've got to the point now where they start to become aware of what they're thinking. And in doing so, in the becoming, I think you just mentioned that, in fact. You say you did. You said exactly the same thing. I've started to become aware of the thoughts that I'm having. You said that just before. You know, and when we start to become aware, if you're unaware of something, so say, for example, you're walking down a street and you're not aware that there's a mugger in a shop doorway, there's a fair chance that he's going to be able to have you. But if you're aware of it, there's a fair chance that you can keep your eye on him, see where he's going, cross the road, make decisions. With awareness, you have more option. Without awareness, you're blind. And one of the things that this conversation tends to do is it starts to highlight the way we think. You suddenly start to become aware of the thoughts you kind of carry around and believe and live out of on a day-to-day basis. It really shows as our ego to our face, if you like. And, you know, whilst it's like a corruption. Okay, it's like corruption that goes on in the world. As long as it's hidden, it's safe. Nobody can do anything about it. But the moment it gets revealed, it's turned upside down, and all of a sudden people can see it and go, no, we're not putting up with that crap anymore. Well, it's like the corruption within our own mind. You know, it's not corruption on a kind of nefarious level. It's just it's on an unwitting level. It's an unwitting thing. None of us mean to do this to ourselves. None of us set out and go, right, how the hell can I make the worst day possible today? You know, we just get lost in this train of thoughts. And, but before we awaken to realize the nature of experience, that experience and reality are inseparable, before we wake up to that point, we will live as though we are completely powerless over reality. But once we start to wake up, you start to wake up and you start to become more discerning with your own mind. You start to become more discerning, you become aware, and in doing so, you become more discerning with the thoughts you're actually going to give power to. What are you going to give? What are you going to feed? What are you going to feed? You know, and this is one of the greatest gifts for my personal life is one, when I have shitty thoughts that I don't particularly like, that I'm not particularly proud of. One of the things that I can do 95% of the time now is I just take my awareness away. I let them go. Oh, there you go again. You're doing it again. Let it go. Let it go. You know, and that's something that I couldn't do before I awoke. Or maybe I could, but I wasn't aware. But it's certainly something I became very aware of after I awoke. And the other thing is, I just don't see the point in giving myself a hard time over having a shit feeling. I don't, you know, I don't beat myself up for it. And in doing so, it seems like it lasts shorter. And I seem to find other ideas that come to me, other thought that seems to come to me, that seems to work in a more helpful direction that I can pay attention to. And, you know, it's such a beautiful thing when we start to discover that, because you start to realize you are mentally healthy. Everybody's mentally healthy. Everybody on earth is mentally healthy. Everybody on earth is mentally healthy, full stop. Okay, it's just, if you remove thought from depression, what are you left with? You know, if you remove thought from anxiety, what are you left with? You know, they just can't exist. They cannot exist without thought. OCD, bipolar, schizophrenia, you remove thought, what are you left with? You're left with nothing. It doesn't exist. So in order for it to exist, there has to be this force called thought to create it. And whether that be thinking that is so outside of everybody else's everyday reality, or one that we all agree on, thought that we all agree on, realities that we all agree on. It's all the same thing. It really is. It's all the same thing. So, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that I think it's a wonderful thing that, Dan, you come on here this week, and you are a shining example to people and everyone that reality, your reality, just like everybody else's, is a temporary experiential event. So you came on last week and you were having a really crappy time, and this week you're having less of a crappy time. You can see that reality itself is ever changing. It's always going to change. It has to change. Has to change. And when we start to notice that reality, oh yeah, it always changes, doesn't it? It always changes. My feeling states, they come and go. Oh, none of it's permanent. None of it has ever been permanent. It allows us to go into the suffering. If we go into a next phase of suffering at some other point, it allows us to go in with that awareness. And in going in with that awareness, 95% of the fear is removed from it, because one of my observations of human beings is they think that their experience is going to last forever, that somehow they're entering into some kind of eternal damnation. But that's never the case. That's never the case. So to kind of have this experience of coming on last week and going through what you went through last week, and to be able to come on this week and go, you know, it's different. You know, I feel better this week, and yeah, a bit of a crappy day today, but you know, I'm all right. You know, it highlights that point. And it allows us to see something that's true. Because there's that old saying, truth will set you free. When you start to find things that are true, you start to find something you can depend upon no matter what. And that's where our strength lies. That's where, well, it's not actually where our strength lies. It's where our peace of mind lies. It lies in discovering truth. So there's a piece of the puzzle right there, and you've just brought that straight in first off. So Dan, I am really, really grateful you opened. Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
I was going to say, Wen did have a hand up,
Yep.
but she's taken it down, so I don't know.
Go on, Wend. You sure? You look pretty today, and you look like you're in front of some kind of red carpet thing. That's your wall.
I was going to say, one of the things that came to mind when you were speaking is, I've said it quite a few times on community group, but when we were on the walk in Pedmarsh one evening, and that day it had been the worst weather, like thunder and lightning, it was pouring.
You couldn't see the top of the trees, could you?
And we had to get Rusty out. I was thinking, oh God, we're going to have to go out in the pouring rain. It's going to be horrible. And then suddenly it just cleared over and it was blue sky. Everything was glistening. We went for this amazing walk.
When you say that, you mean like Essex is flat, isn't it? And there wasn't a cloud in the sky, was
No.
there? The entire sky is blue from horizon to horizon everywhere. You couldn't believe it.
And I said today, like, it's like the mind. Like when you're in the middle of a storm in your mind, it feels so permanent. You can't ever imagine it passing because it just feels like so intense and so everything. And Dave just said, but that is because that all exists for you. That's all that exists for you in that moment. So it is all that there is in that moment, which is why it feels permanent. But I think the understanding taken into that is that when we're in the midst of the storm, there's often a quiet or very subtle kind of awareness of, I know this won't last forever, even though it feels like it will. And that does something for us. But it just reminded me of that story. But seeing that there is nothing wrong with a low mood, a bad feeling, however you want to describe it. It's part of life. Someone messaged me today and said she's been around the principles a long time, actually, and she just said she'd started to realise after a friend said to her, you know, when you have an ECG, what's it like? And she said, what does it mean when it flatlines? I said, oh, it means you're dead. And she said, it suddenly occurred to her, like, experience life. There's going to be ups and downs. And when that stops, in her mind, it means, you know, it's nothing, it's dead. And it only just occurred to her that there's going to be all kinds of experience, ones that we like and ones that we don't. Times when we say we're high, times when we say we're low. But when we know that that's the nature of experience, because the nature of experience is that it's temporary, thought created reality, and we're not stuck with any of it because it comes and it goes. And even people we speak to who have said they've been depressed for 20 years, if you then dig into that, they've had moments of beauty, grief, love, joy, finding things hilarious. There's always been moments, but we seem to kind of the overarching ones. I say I was shy and I was insecure and I was depressed, but within that I had some amazing experiences. I wasn't always those things. And I think the principle seems to allow people to stop identifying with their experiences, stop identifying with their limitations, their beliefs, and then they're free to think again and think again. And we become much more fluid, and we stop trying to box ourselves off as being some kind of person, and we allow whatever comes. And the freedom of that blows my mind. But there's certain things I know that I hold on to as me that don't really serve me. And it baffles me sometimes. I'm like, wow. But it doesn't bother me. And who cares? Because we're all going to have things like that. But it's the realization that it's just in that moment, it's out everything. And I think the other observation is that throughout a day, the amount of times that these things that we say we're suffering, like anxiety, depression, worry, fear, the amount of times throughout a day that they collapse and we just get present with a nice drink, or present with a friend, present watching something on television, present with work. And then suddenly our mind falls back on, "Oh, I'm so anxious, this is terrible." And that becomes our everything. So I think one of the things I've seen along my kind of journey of learning about this is starting to notice and be grateful for all the moments when the stuff I don't like falls away. Because I never had appreciation for that. I just thought, oh, but it came back. I was having such a lovely day, and then suddenly I felt awful again, and it's terrible. But I started to be like, wow, I had a really good morning. Okay, I'm back in this crappy thought again. But I know it's not permanent. I know that it passes through. I know there's nothing wrong with me. I know I'm not alone. Like, whenever you speak to people, they've all had an experience of this. Being here on earth as a human being, we can all relate to one another because there's something at the heart of it that's the same. I think you had a quote up, did you?
Oh yeah, it was just something. Don't even know if I'll read it. I might read it later on.
Anyone else want to say anything or speak to what Dan said or anything that's come up for them or any other questions or comments?
We were sat up in bed the other day. I think it was yesterday morning, was it? And when we sat up in bed, you know, like we've got all trees at the back of our garden. We sit up in bed and we can see the seasons. So we watch the seasons in the trees. So yesterday morning we could see no leaves on the trees, so we could see squirrels running up and down, and it was so nice. And like you say, you're grateful. Virtually every day we'll say, God, we're so grateful. You know, just to, you know, we don't live in a palace or anything like that, but it's our little comfort place and we love it. And we're just so grateful for what we have. And yesterday morning we were just sat and you could see the sky for sunrise. You could see the sky was really, really bright orange. So we were saying, oh, it's going to be a lovely day, but you know, a lovely morning this morning, sunrise. And then within about 2 or 3 minutes, it was absolutely beautiful. And within 2 or 3 minutes, all the orange had gone. And we were just on about that you can sit there and you're aware of life never stands still. Everything's continually moving all the time. So we live for now, you know, live for now, because you're never going to get that moment back or that, you know, that 3 minutes back. So just make the best of every single day, every single moment. And there's no point worrying about tomorrow or what's happened yesterday, because it doesn't actually matter. It's what's happening now that counts. And we keep saying that, don't we? It's as if we've just discovered it, but we've been saying it for 5 years now, and we're still saying it. You know, we just love every single day. We're just grateful for every single day. That's pretty much it.
Love that, Kath.
And I love, like, in what you
We're
said.
so grateful for knowing you two. And everybody,
Grateful for having you two.
Yeah,
we're so
definitely.
grateful for knowing you two. You
You
know,
too.
you're a big part of our lives.
And you us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's in your story, it was how many people would then create this idea that it was going to be a beautiful morning, and then when it passed, be really disappointed because it didn't turn out how they thought it should. And what you were saying is almost like you're there in the moment with what is, and it's not what I expected it to be. But with our experience, we so often then, because it doesn't turn out how we want it to, we feel disappointed. But it was never going to be that way. It was always going to be however it unfolded. So I loved what you said and how true that is for us. Oh, yes. So thank you, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Kath. We went for a walk yesterday and we went up to
That's
one.
our New Year's resolution. I said today we need to do less
Go for a
wandering
walk.
around charity shops and looking at weather And
That's
more
good.
going out for walks in nature, because Lucia
was
just,
lovely.
she does love it normally.
It was lovely. But we're up at a spot called Harrop Tarn, and Harrop Tarn's in the Lake District, and you get it, it's just near Thirlmere, anybody who knows it. And we had a new pram out, so took Lucia in the pram, and it was pretty snowy. It was, there was a lot of snow on the ground still, and it was just starting to thaw, really, wasn't it? But the cloud was down, so we had no views whatsoever. And it was really interesting because with the white of the snow on the ground and then going up the hillside and the black of the trees and the white of the cloud, like my dad describes it as like living in a Tupperware box, like this cloud that's down, you couldn't see the top of the hill. It was like the land and the sky merged into one. The only thing that kind of broke it up was the trees and whatever was in your foreground. And, you could look at it and go, what a god awful day. It feels so depressing. But it was just like, if you are prepared to look for the beauty and see the beauty, you'll see it. And it was such a beautiful thing. We pointed it out. We're like, look at that.
I didn't even notice the fact until you've just said it that we didn't have the view we normally have.
But you
It
couldn't
didn't
see,
even occur to me
couldn't see any of the
that there used
fells
to-
or anything.
there's
could
normally
you?
a view.
You couldn't see any of the fells. You couldn't see anything. But it was a really cool experience walking through the woods with the cloud just above your eye level, barely being able to see the top of the trees. And it was cool. It was really cool. But just coming back to that point that, that you were just making, and my point really there was there's beauty in everything. If you're prepared to take the time to look for it. Beauty isn't outside of ourselves, it's inside of ourselves. Beauty is a state of mind. Beauty is a state of awareness. It's a state of consciousness. What's that saying? Beauty lies in the heart of the beholder.
Eyes of the beholder.
In the eyes of the beholder, that's the one. But then coming back to that thing you just said, live for the now. People get fed up with that statement. They don't like it. But again, let's go back to this truth stuff. Let's look for another grain of truth. Now is the truth. Now is truth. Because now is truly the only thing that actually exists. So if you're living in the now, and when to say living in the now, you can't escape the now is all that actually exists. To create the idea that we're not living in the now is to create an illusion, is to create a future or a past that doesn't actually exist. I'm not saying the past hasn't existed, the past has existed, but it doesn't exist now. All that exists now is this, right here, right now, the now. And that's why I say this quite often, but that's why people have written books about the now. And in the book of Thomas, Jesus is reputed to have said, become a passerby. Understand you are seeing each moment for the very first and the very last time in the eternal now. The now isn't a moment in time. The now has nothing to do with time. Time is an illusion of the now. Time is created in the now. The now has got nothing to do with time whatsoever. People often think that the now is somehow where the future and the past kind of merge somehow, kind of seamlessly merge. No, the future and the past don't exist. The now is the only thing that actually exists. Time is an illusion of the now. Time is an illusion of the mind. Time is created from memory and imagination, thought. Memory is thought. You can't have a memory without a thought. You can't use imagination without thought. It's all thought. Time is all thought. It's not real. But if somebody finds that they align their consciousness with the now, and what that really means is just be present with what you're doing, who you're with, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, without judgment of it needing to be anything else, you will experience this peace. You will start to become aware of the beauty of life. Some people have deeply profound spiritual experiences when they discover the now. And that makes total sense that they would do so, because the creator exists now. It doesn't exist in the future of the past. The future of the past do not exist. The creator exists now. Now is the moment of creation. Right here, right now, wherever you're sat, doesn't matter where you're sat, doesn't matter what the hell you're doing. Right here, right now, this is the very moment of creation. Right here, right now. Here it is. You want to find God? Look to the now. Not God religiously, in my sense, personally, but the creator, the source of life, the magnificence of life, the magnitude, the magic of life. If you want to find the magic of life, you want to find peace, you want to find your happiness, you want to find your mental health, your sanity, stop looking at the past. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion of the mind. It's a trick. Stop looking to the future. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion of the mind. It's a trick. Look to the now. Look to the now. And you'll discover that all those thoughts that were creating these ideas that you're not safe, which are the ones that help mean we suffer, you'll realize they're just all made up. They're just all made up. It's just our mind chattering away bollocks to us. When we align ourselves within the now, 99.999999999999999% of the time, we're perfectly safe. There's nothing going on. Our little mind's gibbering away with the, oh, what if's this? What if that? Oh, do you remember what you did? Oh, well, they said that, didn't they? And you said that. Future and past. Just talking continuously about the illusion of time. So yeah, if people find themselves living more in the now, they're going to find themselves having a more present, more beautiful life. There's method in the madness. Let's look for that grain of truth again. The now is the grain of truth. Now. It's all that actually exists. It will always be all that ever exists. Look, it's still now. We started the conversation about the now a couple of minutes ago. But it's still now. Here it is, right here, right here, right now. There's just movement through the now doesn't move through time. Time moves through the now. Now is a constant state of change. Because it is the point of creation. It is the 0 point of creation. It's one of the most important things human beings can learn. If they want to have a beautiful life, if they want to have a more peaceful life, if they want to have a more fulfilling, integrated experience of existence, a more pleasing time. You know, when you're in the now, there's nothing to forgive. Forgiveness is based in time. When you're in the now, there's no grudges. Grudges are based in time. You know, there's no resentments. Resentments are based in time. There's no worry. Worry is based in time. Anxiety, it's based in time. When we're in alignment with the now, there is none of that. And all it is just a quiet mind and just here now. That's all it is. It's when the mind goes quiet and you become present with that picture or that person or that piece of music or that landscape or the squirrel or the weather or just the appreciation for one another. There it is. It never goes anywhere. It's us that creates the illusion that we're separate from it. It's us that creates the illusion that the future and the past are more significant than the now. The future and the past are the things we really should be paying attention to because that's where all the shit lies, in the future and the past. So we need to sort the future and the past out before I can be peaceful here and now. We've got it backwards. We've got ourselves in such a tangled mess. No, flip it. You align yourself with the now and the future and the past disappear. They go back to where they were created, like a wave being born into the ocean and disappearing back into that frequency of energy.
Can I just say, Dave,
Yeah.
I've found, I think probably over the last couple of years or so, you know, if I were thinking about something, then I'd be getting carried away with my thoughts and creating all these stories. And I still slip up sometimes and rein myself in, or Colin will rein me in. He'll recognise that I'm doing it, and he'll say, you know, yeah, he'll say it's a story, and I'll think straight away, yeah, it is. Stop me thinking. Whereas I wouldn't have done that before. But now, sometimes if I'm thinking something, I'll stop, because I really can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to think. I just think you're wasting your time. So I'm not going to say I get annoyed with myself. I can't be bothered to think. So if I'm starting thinking something, I don't know, somebody might have said that they've got a problem or whatever, I'm always there, I'm always listening and things like that. But when it's anything for me, if it's a problem for me, I just dismiss it. Not because I don't care, but because I just think, well, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to think. So I just switch it off. So
It's not that you don't care. It's
now,
because
you know,
sorry.
am I okay? As long as I'm okay, well, that's it. I don't have to think. That's it. So I've got hours I just can't be bothered thinking.
And life's still gone on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's getting better because of it. You know, it's I've definitely peaceful inside, so much more than I used to be, simply because I just don't think. And if I catch myself out, I just stop, because I'll say, I can't be bothered.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
But that is it, you know, you start to awaken up to your actual free will.
Mm.
You know, you start to awaken to the fact that you do have some say over your life. Majority of people live as though they have no say over their lives, or perhaps they have 20% say over their life. No, we have 100% say over our experience of life. And this is where somebody would say, well, I don't have any say over whether somebody drives their car into my car. No, you don't. That's circumstance. Don't confuse circumstance with your experience of life. Because your experience of life is however you experience that car crash. That's your experience of life. You could get angry about it. You could be compassionate about it. You could be worried about it. You could be, oh, thank God, I'm claiming for a new car now. I don't know. Done me a massive favor there, mate. I don't know. We have an infinite amount of experiences we could have given any given circumstance. So don't confuse circumstance with experience, because circumstance is something that takes place outside of ourselves. Experience is something that is created from within inside of ourselves. You know, when I'm talking about reality, I'm talking about this whole thing that I cannot escape. I can never escape. Even in having my experience of dying, I could not escape reality, the experience of reality. Reality is an experiential thing created from consciousness. And everybody's consciousness is experiencing its entirely unique expression of life. Why? Because consciousness is the source of creation. Everything is consciousness. So everybody is experiencing their own unique perspective of experience of reality. No two people on earth see the same world. Why? Because they are conscious experiential beings, which means that they are source creator beings, which means that they are creating reality. They are creating their entire experience of life. And it's all created from consciousness, thought. You can't escape it. You take away consciousness from the senses, what are you left with? Not a right lot, not a lot to experience as a human being. You take away consciousness from thought, what are you left with? Take away consciousness from feeling, what are you left with? Take the awareness, take the the presence of it away, what are you left with? Nothing. There is nothing to experience. But so much of the time of my life, I lived as though I was experiencing, living in this world.
Sorry, I get ready.
Give it a go. Give it a go. Letting somebody in. This is usually when we get bombed. Living in this world as though I have no say over the reality that I'm encountering.
That guy you came on, Dave. He just reminds me of some of the impact it has. It had like 1 second's worth. It doesn't. I don't give a flying shit about. But the impact. It just reminded me of some of my own thinking. I'm not talking about vulgar, but it was a good reminder of, yeah, that's you. That's how you enter it. Negative, worried thinking. This was it. Yeah, it comes in just like that. Let's
It
hook
does.
on here. Yeah.
Does,
So
and
it's a good reminder.
it is. No, it is. And I think that is such an important point. So yeah, thank you, Lucy, Richard, whoever you are, with
Paul A.
Paul A, with your African mask and your willy wanging around. It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
The only reason I find it annoying is because I then have to export this, put it into an editing program, cut that bit out, and then export it and then upload it rather than just downloading it and uploading it.
Yeah.
But I said today we have to cut it out because I think if you put it up on YouTube, you can then get kicked off YouTube for indecent content,
Yeah.
which would be really annoying.
No, but it is. I like that point, Div, because I don't know about anybody else. I can't stop thoughts coming into my head like that. And it's literally like that, idiot. But, and I think that's what many people think that they're going to find. I'm going to find this place where I can stop thoughts. Right. The problem with that is, again, it goes back to time. Let's go back to this time problem that we face as human beings. The idea that somehow we can stop thoughts brings us straight back to the problem of time again, because in order to prevent a thought means we would have to step forward in time, which doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It just, all that exists is the now. So we live in this moment of creation of the now. And therefore, when we're living in the moment of creation of now, thoughts naturally come into our awareness in the now. They can't come into our awareness in the future or the past. So therefore, thoughts just look like they appear out of nowhere, which technically they do. Nowhere being the infinite space of consciousness. So I don't know anybody who's ever managed to not think thoughts. I don't know anybody who doesn't have thoughts pop into their heads that perhaps are illegal, immoral, that they don't particularly want to share. But I think when we start to become aware of this point, thoughts come into our mind, but like that idiot, he didn't really have any power.
I was trying to think, is it someone that we know who's taken the
I
mic
don't know.
because they know how much we don't like it?
I don't know. Emily's entered the room now.
Oh no, because I knew that Margot was going to join, but I won't. I don't think we should risk it.
You don't?
No. No, she'll let me know on Facebook if she's coming. Why would she be under Emily? I'd just say
Yeah,
no.
okay. No more tonight. Sorry, people. And if you're watching this on catch up and it was you,
We're
we're
really sorry.
sorry. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really nice point, that, Div. And these ideas of I'm not going to think these thoughts, I can somehow control my thoughts. I can't control my thoughts. I can't stop thoughts coming into my head. Do you know what I mean? But the thing that I do have a say over is how long I entertain them for. How long I entertain them for, and how much credence I actually give them, and what I believe into them. What story I create out of that thought, about that thought. Because that's all we're doing. We have a thought, and then we create a story out of thought about that thought. And we suddenly go, oh God, I'm not doing this. I'm not getting this. I'm not doing this right. Blah, blah, blah. This is all stories. This is all thoughts. Did you want to say something?
I don't know if it's relevant anymore. I'm trying to. I'll see. I was just when earlier on when we were speaking, it's this idea of if we can somehow live in the now, we're not going to have experiences or feelings that we don't like. But the truth of it is that we're always in the now. And watching Lucia, it's been incredible to see the creation of ego and the creation of character. And she is now able to hold on to a not very nice feeling for much longer than she could even 6 months ago. So she can get an idea in her head that she wants something or doesn't want something, and she can go on and on and on and on about it. And it's amazing to me to watch, because before you could just distract her. Oh, should we do this? Oh, look out the window. Completely gone, and she'd just be into the next moment, into the next moment. But she's learned that she can hold on to something. So even though it doesn't feel nice and she's having a horrible experience, she doesn't just drop it like she used to. And that's fascinating to me. And it points to how innocent we are as human beings, that we start creating character and ego from, I don't know, maybe the moment we're born. Lucia seemed to be just in this kind of space for such a long time of just presence and awe of life. And, you know, if someone else took something off her, she'd just sort of pick something else up. Where she's got this idea of mine, me, like she doesn't like if I hold other people's babies now. She's like, that's my mum. And she's got this idea that I belong to her. And it's just so interesting seeing, like, I haven't taught her to hold on to those kind of things. I haven't taught, but she's learnt it from us. So it feels like that kind of kindness and compassion that we can find for her as a 2-year-old navigating life is that same for us. We didn't mean to do it. We didn't mean to create these ideas and characters and beliefs. So I think it seems that built into life is this kind of lostness. We get lost. We get lost in the illusion of it. And then for when we start to feel like we're remembering again and coming back to the truth, we all get a feel and a sense of that. We know what it feels like when we start aligning with something true again. But I still wonder if being here on earth as a human being, I don't think we'll ever escape feelings that we don't like or we find uncomfortable. But the difference is when we're present with them and not thinking they should be different, they pass through quicker. But I think looking at Lucia, I can see it's just misunderstanding. It's not anything more than that. And I can be so understanding of her. Like, you got back the other day and I was like, she had a meltdown for about 15 minutes. And I can't remember what it was. It was the same thing she said. Oh, it's because I took the skin off her kiwi fruit and put it in the bin and gave her kiwi fruit. And then she went mental because she wanted me to get the skin out of the bin. And I was like, no, it's been in the bin with a load of stuff. But she just went on and I want it. And I was like, wow, for 15 minutes. I said, by the time Dave got back, I was like, she's just stopped. I said, but it's been a bit like that all day. There's been so many moments of it. But I sort of bless you. Because she never used to be able to hold on to something that long. It was literally like one thing you could say and she'd be out of it. Whereas now she can just hold on to it. And it amazes me. And I'm interested in it. What is it about us that we do that? Like, who knows? But it does seem we all get lost in it. This identity, this separation, this mine and them and all of that.
Yeah. It's insecurity, isn't it?
When you've got your hand up again, so before you take it down, we'll click on you.
Yeah, I think what made me prompted me to raise my hand was the fact of, wouldn't it be great if we just were feeling peaceful and at ease, and the kiwi skin could be in the bin and we wouldn't care, and life would be lovely, and if it was raining, it was lovely. But I'd be bored silly. How do I know when anything is pleasant unless I've had discomfort? How would I know when anything is a beautiful walk in the woods unless I've been cooped up in the house for 3 weeks because of the snow? how would I know that I wasn't anxious if I didn't have anxious moments? So it's not that I go looking for distress or looking for pain, but I don't believe, for me, I'll speak for myself, that I could recognize a good time or a good day unless I'd had bad ones or upsetting moments. I just, I live in New England. Get it? New England. Anyway, that's the
Sounds
part yeah, that's the part of the United States that I live in. And there are 4 seasons, like probably most of the United Kingdom. There are 4 seasons. And I have friends that, God bless them, they live in Los Angeles or San Diego or whatever, and there are not 4 seasons. There are not 4 discernible times of the year of different weather, and like Colin and Catherine talking about their tree. Sometimes the tree looks like this when it's winter. Sometimes it looks like that in the spring, and they enjoy knowing. And I enjoy that too. I don't think I would enjoy. I have a friend that I just met yesterday. She lives in the Grenadine, which is somewhere in the Caribbean. And she was on the Zoom call and she was in a t-shirt, like a tank top, and the wind was blowing through her hair and the waves were crashing behind her. I said, "Is it like that all year round?" She goes, "Yes, all the time." And I'm like, I didn't do that to her, but I wouldn't mind going there today. It's cold. I wouldn't mind being there for 3 weeks right now, but I wouldn't. So anyway, that just was struck me, was that I don't know how you know peace of mind, or I don't care if there's kiwi skins in the bin now. I remember when I was 2.5, it really bugged me, but now it doesn't. They can go in the bin. I don't even care. And it strikes me that everybody on this call, basically, most people, except for me and Susanna, are from the United Kingdom. And if it wasn't for you people, we wouldn't have the sign that says, "Keep calm and carry on." So thank you.
Yeah. I love the way it's got the royal crest at the heart of that. No, there's I've got a few foreigners on tonight. We got Danny's over at Northeast. And no, we got Louise, Greenland. We've got Div, Australia. Got Zuzana in Poland. And we've got you, Wend. So we've got equal.
Got Scotland.
I know we have got Scotland, I know. And we've got Scotland. It's on the same landmass, though. We're all one people. It's fairly even.
I haven't met one person that lives on your big island there, whatever you want to call it, Great Britain, that can explain to me the difference between Great Britain, England, United Kingdom, Scotland, Wales. I'm 66 years old. I've asked for it 10 times. Nobody can explain it to me in a way that makes sense, that I go, "Oh, now I get it." But that's for another day, maybe.
Well,
All
it's
right.
like the United States. It's like the United States of Great Britain. That's basically it. Yeah. We did it. I hope that worked. What was I going to say?
Was it brilliant?
It was amazing. It was something Wend was just talking about just then, and then she distracted me.
Feeling peaceful all the time?
No.
Seasons?
No, I was going to go to Sam, actually, if Sam was up for it. Don't know if Sam's up for it, but I had a lovely talk with Sam the other day, and just talking about gratitude in the face of something you wouldn't naturally think you would find gratitude for, and I was just going to, find gratitude in, and that's one of the things that you start to find as you start to become more aware as living as a human being with a kind of, if you want to call it, a higher awareness. You start to look for the beauty in things, and you start to become aware of the gifts. I know that's one of the things that when I enter into one of my low patches, I enter into one of my, where you've been, Dan, or whatever, which happens to me sometimes. There's this part of me that's like, right, I know I awaken from this somehow. At some point, I awaken from this, and I'm curious to know what I'm going to learn on the other side of this. Because when you start to get eyes for growth and learning. Once you've had Zuzana, right just before we started recording, you were saying I've had a few insights and stuff. But once you start having insights, you do become curious. Once you have your first insight, it doesn't matter what it's about. Once you become aware of insight, you start to become curious of life and you start to look forward to insight. So it's like, this is how we grow. We grow through insight. Human beings' life grows through insight, through realization. We don't grow through mental agitation, through figuring stuff out, ruminating and getting lost in here. We grow through the revelation, from within ourselves via insight. That's how human beings evolve. That's how life evolves. And when we start to get eyes for that, Sam, are you up for having a bit of
Yeah, I'm here. I'm useless with this. I'm just trying to work out. I think I've worked it out. There you go.
But once you start to get eyes for it, you start to approach life differently. And Sam, I was curious because it was just tying into what Wend was saying, and I know that you've been saying some stuff. I wondered if you'd like to share.
Yeah. It's been interesting. As you know, it felt like everything was stripped away of what I knew or what I saw during the last kind of, how long is it now? 7 or 8 weeks since my accident. And I did wonder what would come back and what would look different. And someone interestingly said to me the other day, so I was chatting to them, they'd had an accident last week and I was chatting with them. And I was giving them all the things that I'd learned, some of it quite practical. And one of the things I said to her was that I remember being on a lot of medication and I got a message and I told her already, I felt like I wasn't seeing what I knew. And I said, but I got a message from a friend about medication and that she just had this almost intuitive voice saying to message me and to tell me to come off the pain meds. And that actually that was really causing me a problem. And I did, within 24 hours, I'd stopped them. And she said, well, what's really interesting is you were listening, but maybe it just wasn't your own voice you could hear at that time. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So, because we do, I think in the principles world, it's always about our own wisdom and what we're hearing. And I think sometimes it's okay to just listen to what other people are saying and what we pick up and what we see from that. And that was something that was quite profound for me to see, because I was like, I hadn't seen anything during that time, but I had. I just didn't seem to have access to my own voice, my own inner voice. That seemed blocked off. But then interesting, once I did come off the meds, it did start to come back. The couple of insights I've had over the last week. One was the things that I thought I needed before the accident don't look very important to me anymore. And the insight that came out of that was, well, everything belongs to you anyway, because there's nothing that isn't made of you. There's nothing that is separate from you. It made me laugh. It was like, oh yeah. It's like, how could there be anything that wasn't for me? I don't know. I haven't quite made total sense of it yet, but it was, when something's so true, it makes you laugh, but maybe you don't quite intellectually understand it. It felt a bit like that. And it reminded me of, not comparing my experience to hers, because she had a massive awakening kind of overnight, was Byron Katie's experience. And I remember her talking about when she woke up, she'd walk into strangers' houses because she thought they were her own. She didn't know that things belong to people. For her, it was like everything just is there and everything belongs to everybody and everything belonged to her. And there wasn't this sense of separation dropped so much that all she had was this kind of idea that she could do that, and her husband would have to come after and go, no, you know, that's not your house, that's not your stuff, that's not your car. And we she didn't even know that her children were her own. And it was that, and slowly, obviously, she relearned. She had to relearn what it was to be in the physical world again, to be in the material world. And then when I was looking at some old things that I was doing last year and courses I was doing, and it was like the money course or the getting what you want or the creating course. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do those, but it felt so irrelevant. And then yesterday, I think it was like the futility of thinking that we can change thought, really. And that might go a little bit against what you were saying earlier, but
No, not at all.
I think I wrote it down. Let me see if I can. It was just a quick note. And it was just around how, what was it? It's not your thought that changes, it's the energy of thought that changes. It's consciousness. So when you try to change your own thinking, that's why it feels so futile, because it's not you doing it, and it never has been. And it was just this sitting there, and I was in a bit of a, because I'm still getting a bit caught up in between these kind of insights and these contractions. And it's like, look at you still thinking you can do anything about it. And again, I laughed. I keep laughing at how innocent we are. How innocent we are in our pursuit of trying to manage our experience. And how it looks like we can do that, and how that's going to make everything better. And then I'll try and do it again. But again, like I said, it's like, remember I said last week, it's like a hazy picture that's there. It's a little bit clearer. It's not completely clear. I don't suppose it will ever be completely clear, but it's like it's just changing. It's bringing more laughter in. Obviously, I didn't have a lot of laughter for a little while, and it's bringing, again, not all the time, but there's a lightheartedness coming into it. And then there's the times when my mind feels heavy, and I can have the memory of the accident and the contraction around the feeling of that, and then that releases. And I remember what you spoke about last week of that it's the wave crashing, and then it falls away, and there's nothing left. And yeah, it's just beginning to. I don't know if life ever really makes sense. I'm not sure. I think that's something we want it to do. I'm not sure it really does. But I'm starting to come home again. I guess I'm starting to remember home again. And that you spoke about God, and that's been a big thing. I'm not religious, but there's been this sense of God. I've been listening to stuff around that as well. And it was, sometimes it feels like God's not there, and that's what it felt like for a couple of weeks. And it's like, do you still have faith in those moments? And it was, I actually did, and that was quite interesting. So yeah, it's just a very interesting, visceral, what was it Sid called it, life's a contact sport experience. But again, I get completely lost, and then I get to see something, and I get completely lost, and I get to see something. But it's the intensity of it has been, yeah, it's definitely been there.
I guess as well, if you've been at home recovering for like 8 weeks, that in itself, I guess for you as well, because of given the experience you had before coming across the principles of being almost housebound, like I can imagine that has been that could have in early stages bringing up that feeling in you. But I think sitting and being alone with your own mind, you know, people try and do 10-day Vipassanas, and you know, when there's a lot going on in their mind, they find it incredibly difficult. And in a way, you know, I guess you've had your mum and Harry and stuff, but you've had a lot of time alone with your own mind, so it's kind of, you can see what the mind does. Often we are distracted from it, with life, but actually what gifts have come up from being present with it, and probably so different to what you experienced before coming across the principles of, you know, you're physically able but mentally not able to leave the house.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And it was like the things that I guess, and I think I might have actually said this last week, it's you don't realize how many things you've got in place to distract you when you do get caught up. So it would be go to the gym, go for a coffee, go living in the sea, go to the sea, you know, go out with Harry, you want to go do something, you know. And it's like when you can't move and you're stripped of all that, what's left? And that was really powerful. And the vulnerability, like, wow, to have your independence taken away and to be vulnerable and to have to rely on other people, and even thoughts like, oh my God, if something happens, I can't get out of the house. You know, it's like where thought goes. It's like, and it's like, okay, and then you bring yourself back from that, or you come back from that, and you're like, well, you're fine. You're fine. And it's as if the safety that I still manufactured in my mind through my beliefs about the physical world were taken away. And I was even sitting there thinking about this earlier, and I was looking at my house, and I was like, you know, it's a big sturdy old house, but I was like, well, what if this was taken away? Will I still have what I'm made of? And that was a thought. And yeah, but again, there was so much outside of that still that, you know, because I do weights, that was keeping me strong, that was keeping me safe. The 3 principles were keeping me safe. None of it keeps the physical safe. The physical is by its nature vulnerable. But what's waking up now is what the safety or the security or the knowing that comes from that which cannot be taken away, which is eternal. And that's where my connection and my trust and my faith in God, whatever that is developing more. But you know, I'm hands up, I lost it. There was none of that at some point. There was just emotion, there was just trauma, there was just, you know, shock, can't believe this has happened. There was that this isn't fair. You know, I've gone through all of those things, but they were temporary, and they were just the experience that was there in that moment, and that was what was on the table.
Have you still got your poem, The Gift?
Somewhere, yes.
Would you dig it up before the end of the thing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll go look for it now. I'll stop my video, I'll go have a look.
Yeah, because I think that's quite relevant. Just something you said, Sam. You know, you're saying basically you realize you can't really define life. And I was gonna read out the little thing I was gonna read earlier on because it seemed like it fitted at that point, but I just saw this one instead. There has never been a concept drawn up about life that actually defines it. This means that to fully experience what life is in its most immaculate form, no intellect is required or is capable. No one in the universe can dream up an image or definition, as these are always limited. So we can relax when we are trying to find our self, peace of mind, mental health, or God. Relax into letting go, taking it off our to-do list, as the intellect will never make it. And we will feel its presence within us. as us ever stronger. You know, what we are talking about is you cannot define it. What we're talking about is something that is so beyond our human intellect capacity. We cannot conceptualize what life is, what reality is. We can discover it, we can feel it, we can recognize the truth of it, but people who do have experiences of recognizing the truth of it, you ask them what it is and they'll go, well, there's no words to describe it. There's no words for that space. For that space, people often describe it at near death. People often describe it like Cole when he had his awakening in the Lake District. You know, what came out of Cole's mouth was quite often, for a minute or two, seemed like utter nonsense to us, but to Cole it obviously made sense. But it's because you couldn't conceptualize it, you couldn't put words to what was actually taking place. You know, but there was an awful lot of laughter as the realization was dawned. Cole realized the cosmic humor of life, and it made him laugh, and which we all started laughing. It was a wonderful moment. But there is no concept. That what we're talking about is a conceptless place. It is a place before we try and dream up any notion, any ideas of who we should be, how it's got to look, blah, blah, all that's bollocks. It's called the details, and it's the domain of the devil. The devil's in the details. You know, so when Sam's saying that, you know, I can't define life, she's absolutely right. You cannot define life. Life itself, life, this mad experience. This mad experience. This is what I was going to read. Every single one of us is an explorer. Each of us are exploring into the far reaches of experience of consciousness. Trailblazing beings. We bring the not yet discovered into our awareness and live it out as our lives. Explore, get lost, find our way. There is no map or any need for such a thing, as we never even once left the safety of home.
That's nice.
Hedge trimming. Hedge trimming seems to either bring me to
It's almost a
despair,
blessing or a curse then, isn't it?
yeah, bring me to that space where you get information. That's what we all are. We are all trailblazing explorers of consciousness. The only thing we are ever experiencing is our own consciousness. The only thing we're ever experiencing is our own creation. You cannot experience a world outside of yourself. It's impossible. It doesn't exist. The only world we ever get to experience is the world that we are generating from consciousness, from the mind. It's the only thing we ever get to experience. It may look like you're experiencing the cup of tea. Well, that's outside of myself. No, the experience is entirely within the sight, the sound, the temperature. It's all an experience of consciousness, how it tastes. Do I like it? Yes, no. Do I want another one? Yes, no. It's all an experience of the mind. And there is no outside of that point, which is the point by which I mean you never once leave the safety of home. Because one of the things Sam is starting to discover, and she's only starting to discover it because I think she probably got glimpses of this before. Sam's known some, Sam's not daft, is that in spite of what the hell is going on outside in the world, there is this place within us that is completely 100% untouchable. It's never been destroyed yet. Every single one of us on this screen, every single one of us watching this afterwards, if you've clicked on this, look back at your own life, look back at that hard time, look at it, look at that fucking hard time that you thought you were never going to make it through, when your heart was so broken you thought, I will never, ever, ever get over this. And somehow it became a memory. Somehow, perhaps, just perhaps, you're actually grateful it took place because of the growth and the learning that we took from it. And like I spoke to a man who'd had an affair I said to this man, I said, did I mention this last week? I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
think
All right, I'll mention it again. Thought I remember, got a recollection of saying it. I said to this man, I said, but what was the silver lining? And he said, well, I became more compassionate of other people who had affairs. I was like, wow, humbling. That's humbling. You know, and humility is a beautiful thing, because when we're in humility, we're not in judgment. If we're not in judgment, we're not suffering the feeling of like self-righteousness and self-defense. We're not in that space. We're in a space of love,
we've said
humility.
that, haven't we, with parenting. Do not make any judgments. As soon as you make a judgment about another parent, you find
Yeah.
yourself in the same situation or something. So it's like, there's
It's
no judgment. You feel it
everything.
coming up, you're like, leave it. Yeah.
Everything I've had judgment about in my life, I've experienced. I've experienced it firsthand. Yeah, you go, oh, you think you know something about that, do you, big lad? Yeah, have a go of that. Have a go. You have a go. See how you like it. And that's what seems to have happened to my life. Anything I've had judgment about, and I find myself now dropping the judgments, because I'd sooner learn through observation and humility than learning life the hard way. But sometimes, you know, we have to learn in life the hard way.
Like when you said to Lucia, don't put your hand in the fan. It will really hurt.
Yeah.
But she had to just go and cut all her finger.
That was horrible, wasn't
It
it?
was horrible.
I'm so glad her finger was still on, to be honest.
But the silver lining of that was for the next month or so, if we said to her, Louise, be really careful, don't do that. Remember what happened with your finger? She'd be like, oh, better not touch it, better not do it. So she did learn something from that.
Yeah. You see, and this point, I don't really know how to, it's something you have to become aware of, that there is no outside of you. You've never experienced outside of your own consciousness. I've never experienced outside of my own consciousness. That's why we all see different worlds. That's why we all see different realities. That's why we don't all see eye to eye. But everybody's reality looks like the truth. It looks like it's the true reality. That's why there's arguments. That's why there's war. That's why we have disagreements. That's why it's nice when we find people who we align with within our mind. It feels comfortable, because there's no kind of, there's nothing to butt up against. There's no kind of jarring of the ego. What's the ego? Well, the ego is my perception of the world. It's what I think is real. It's what I think is true. That's ego. But when we realize that the entirety of our life is coming from life itself, which is consciousness, which is the experience of life. And when I woke up to this, it was the moment, it was the death of my depression. Depression I'd had for years, died in the moment when I realized that it was entirely coming from within me. Oh, I have done all of this to myself. I have done all this to myself. Nobody has done it. No circumstance has created it. I have done this to myself innocently, unwittingly, naively. I have done this to myself. Oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to believe those beliefs anymore. Wow, the way I think about the world has held me prisoner in this place. The way I've thought about myself in such a derogatory way has kept me in such suffering. Oh, I don't have to live there anymore. I can let all that go, and I became a bit more like Dan. Like, I'm going to be kinder to me. And I'm going to be kinder to other people who are suffering as well. Those angry lads, you know, those angry lads, those dickheads, those that come on, wave the willies around in some stupid African mask, saying obnoxious words. God bless you, friend. God bless you. You know, it's in the trials of life that we do find this compassion, where we do find love. None of it is without value if we're prepared to step up and find the value. None of it's without value. It's all value. Value packed. Value packed in allowing us to help us find a more beautiful life for ourselves, to be a more, what's the word? Cooperative, kind person on this planet. A more helpful being on this planet. The trials of life are invaluable for that. But coming back to this point, there is no outside. There is no outside. Everything we experience is an experience from within. It's created from within. Even my view of this room is created within myself. It's created from consciousness. You remove consciousness from this body, the body will drop to the floor, the senses will not work. It's consciousness that's experiencing. We are consciousness. That's what we are. We don't have it, we are it. That's where the power lies. It lies in the discovery of who and what we truly are. And in the discovery of that, it opens up a doorway. Now, this doorway leads to infinity. The doorway was never really real, but we start to become aware of it. And we step through this doorway into a new world. And this new world is entirely plausible. It's entirely real, just like the old world. Apart from it's a world with greater understanding. There is no outside of ourself. There is no outside. Everything we experience is an experience from within our being. It's magical, it's spiritual, it's phenomenal, it's inexplicable, it blows my mind. But it's real. Whatever that is. Sam has been up and down, in and out, exploring exploring what it's like to feel this, exploring what it's like to feel that. When I was in one of my worst states, I've said this before, but I asked for help, I asked for help, I asked for help, 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 help. And I was given the words, the soul doesn't measure. Soul doesn't measure. The soul doesn't judge anything. Your soul, my soul, doesn't judge. It just experiences. The soul can't be broken. The soul can't be destroyed. Your soul can't be stolen. Soul is pure consciousness. It's it's life itself. It doesn't measure. It doesn't judge a thing. It doesn't hate. It doesn't think anybody's bad. It's pure love. And that's really what everybody's looking for. They're looking for themselves. They're looking for that state of being which is real, which isn't a concept. Love is not a concept. Love isn't even a state of being. It's not just a feeling. It's life itself. When we feel love, we're feeling the essence of existence now. It feels immensely beautiful. I'm grateful for that. Because to find that beautiful feeling, to find that immense feeling, you don't have to go anywhere. It's always there. It's there before the formation of judgment and beliefs. It's there observing it. It's there not judging it. It's just the ever-presence. Eternal, non-physical. It cannot be broken. What did you write down?
Where?
You said, oh, I want to say something.
Oh, no, it's more of an idea about some of your writings.
Oh. Right, anybody else?
I was going to say, you can see how I kept zoning in and out of what you were saying. So your voice is like loud, it's next to me. Then I kept thinking about our tax return. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm not listening. But just noticing how your own mind is so much louder than anything going on around you.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting when your thoughts come in and your attention goes there, it's at the detriment of everything else.
Yeah, like everything that wasn't even seen in the room really. I was like, wow,
Mm.
we need to do that.
I don't suppose I could ask a question, could I?
Go on, man, please.
So, I know I've been around this this community for about a year. The only thing that I don't know, it's just literally popped into my brain about 5 seconds prior to me asking. But what is the history of the three principles? Like where's it, like I know that you've obviously spoken about Sid Banks and that, but the history of it, I don't actually know like a lot of it. And I'd be quite interested to hear that, to be
Well,
honest.
So as in, do you know about Sid's initial experience, who Sid was, then how it kind of grew?
Very, very little, like very little.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll do like a little brief synopsis. Then
Yeah.
also I'll link you to some of Sid's videos where he actually talks about his experience, because he does explain it way better than I would.
Yeah.
And there's
we'll put them in the
and there's also a book
below.
That's been written by Jack Pransky that is all about the three principles from kind of Sid's initial experience
Cheers, Dave.
to probably about 5 years ago, and it kind of just all the different names, all the different kind of ways it's been shared in the world, because it's had different names throughout since 1973. So in 1973, Sid had his initial experience, which again, I really feel you need to watch the video of him talking about it. But the stories that I've heard, because I've never heard him in person say it, was that he had been on a well-being like retreat with his wife, and he kept signing up for it and then cancelling, signing up and then cancelling, and then eventually the person said, right, if this is Sid Banks and you sign up, you're coming. So him and his wife went to this kind of, I think it's like a self-development thing for couples. And on day one, they had couples stand in the middle shouting at each other and getting their anger out. And both him and his wife just said, we're not going to come back. Like, we could do this at home. We don't have to pay for this. But he'd had some conversations with a young psychologist who was also on the course. And then he said he was speaking to that same psychologist the next day. And he said he had this huge insight of, and he said it to the psychologist, I'm not insecure, I just think I'm insecure. And he said he realized that when the psychologist was like, yeah, I know that. He realized he didn't know that. But from that moment, something had shifted in him. And for 3 days and 3 nights, he didn't sleep. He was just getting bombarded with insight, and kind of he just said it was like buzzing. And then he was sat with his mother-in-law and his wife. Well, that they were in the kitchen, and he said he just heard them chattering away or bickering about something. And he said he stood up to say something to them.
He started laughing, didn't he?
Yeah, because he realised the insanity of it almost. But he said for some reason he didn't. He looked out the window. And then he says he experienced death of ego. He said there's white buzzing light, and he just experienced death of ego. And he doesn't know how long it lasted, but then he turned around, and what he actually said to his wife and mother-in-law was, I'm home, I'm free, I've conquered this world. We're going to travel, sharing, changing psychology and psychiatry. And then he said his wife and mother-in-law looked at him like he was mental. So he started talking about his job, which was welding, and they were even more worried about him because he never spoke about his job. He hated it. But then from that moment on, he just started having people turn up at his door wanting to learn from him. When he went back to work, someone tried to stop him going in his locker because they didn't recognise him. And I think after 8 months working as a welder, he stopped working, and he just, like, people thought he was mad again, but he just knew he'd somehow be looked after and his family would be looked after. And I think, I don't know if it was that year or the next year, some psychologists got interested about this guy who was sharing on an island, and people were getting better, people's relationships were healing. So this island was becoming healthy. So lots of psychologists started going, and some started to hear. Some thought they already knew it, or how could I learn from someone that's not educated in the way that I am? And some of the early psychologists were Dr. Roger Mills, George Pransky, Linda Pransky, Keith Blevins. I think there's a guy called John Enright. I think he may have been one of the initial ones. And they then started sharing differently in their practice because they saw that what they'd been taught was actually causing in some ways more harm, because it was keeping people stuck in the illusion of their ego and the illusion that there's a problem. Whereas what Sid was talking to was waking people up to something far beyond that. He wasn't looking at thinking, he was looking at the power that creates. So then quite a few of them then almost went and had, I guess, a bit like pilgrimages to the island and just learnt from Sid and sat and listened. And then took it into psychology. And then, you know, a business person might be impacted by it, so then they'd have someone in and come and work in their business, and it just kind of spread. And then when I came across it in 2005, Sid had some books and some audio and videos on CD and DVD, but they'd take months to come from Lone Pine Publishing's out in Canada. So that's when Rudy, my ex-husband, and I decided to create content for the internet. Like, this is amazing, why don't people know? So then we traveled around America, predominantly America, filming transformation, filming facilitators, bless you, and creating loads of online content, because it felt like everyone had been moved and touched by the principles and it had spread, but everyone was just kind of getting on with their practice, getting on with their lives. There wasn't any kind of big collaboration. And it was at the same time the Three Principles global community was really trying to bring some cohesion to it. So I think we were like the biggest online resource for the Three Principles for a long time, whereas now the 3PGC has got so much content, videos, webinars, blogs, all kinds of things, and this has gone to every kind of field within governments, within hospitals, prisons, business, you know, psychology, psychiatry, sport, just kind of everywhere. And I'd say in 2005, when I came across this, I pretty much knew everyone who'd heard of the Three Principles in the UK, and now I've got absolutely no idea.
But in my time, since 2013, like exponential growth.
I was going to say also, Jamie Smart was like a huge NLP guy, and he almost like publicly transitioned from being NLP to Three Principles, and he had a huge following. So that really got so many different. That's why I think it's gone out so much into the coaching community in the UK, because of Jamie Smart, and in America because of a guy called Michael Neal. Again, was NLP and technique-y based, and then he's moved into the Three Principles and taken his community with him. So that's like
they had big followings in NLP, didn't they?
And there's so many other amazing people within that I haven't mentioned, who have just done incredible work.
Well, everybody.
But I mean, in terms of key points in the Principles history, like it used to be called Psychology of Mind,
innate
health, health realization, and then in 2006, Sid said, just call it what it is. It's the Three Principles. But initially, when he had his experience, he wasn't given the Three Principles as the Three Principles. He spoke about mind, he spoke about thought, he spoke about consciousness. He often used the word God because he'd been brought up.
He'd often swap words around, like describing mind, he'd use the word consciousness, or because he described it as the Trinity, three of one, Trinity of one. It's all the same thing.
I think that only started in the 90s, like even calling it the Trinity.
Yeah.
But the impact of what his message was beyond the words. It was waking people up, like waking people up. And it'd be interesting to see now, like if he was still alive, he passed away in 2009. Like, what would he be saying?
What would he
how would he be sharing? Because everyone that knew him well said that he evolved more from the time of his first experience to the time that he died than anyone they'd ever witnessed in life. He was so childlike and momentary and allowed things to drop away, they said it was incredible to be around. But they'd still say he was still not just a man, but he was a man.
It's nice speaking to David, like his son, because we've had
Shabbat.
we had Shabbat with him once around at Terry Rubenstein's and Brian Rubenstein's, and he was telling the stories about Sid, and he was saying, it was just a bloke. He said, if I could tell you, but if I could tell you about the most beautiful, loving, compassionate human being I've ever met, he said, I'd have to tell you about my mum. He said, my dad could be quick to temper. He said, he was very momentary. He experienced everything. He said, one thing I would have to say for my dad was he was very present. He said, and things came and went, and when it had gone, it had gone. He said he didn't go back to it. He didn't ruminate on it. He was in the present moment. He was very, very present. He wasn't in any judgment of his experience. And I remember thinking that was a really beautiful thing to kind of hear, because I think so many people kind of think that when you have these kind of life-changing experiences, somehow you're going to escape being a human. But in actual fact, you actually become more human because you allow your humanness to be. You realize your humanness rather than trying to fight the humanness and go to war with the humanness. You actually embrace the humanness, love the humanness, love the duality of life that we're creating. Play the game, enjoy the game, ride the game, realize it's a game. Yeah, I think, but one of the things that Sid would say, he said, what I discovered isn't new. He said, I haven't brought something new into the world. He said, all I'm articulating is what always exists. He said, all I'm doing is I'm talking about that already is and always has been. But perhaps we couldn't see it. And I know I personally am so grateful to Sue Hugenson, who introduced me to Sid. And it was when I listened to Sid and his little message, and it's weird because you think you know what you're looking for. We all think we know what we're looking for. I thought the things that are going to bring me peace and happiness, I thought I knew what they would be, and it wasn't. It's none of that. It lies within ourselves. And that pisses everybody off. Those words are the most annoying, pathetic, useless words, but it's true. What everybody is looking for, they already are. When I've written that thing about being an explorer, and we are exploring into the furthest reaches of consciousness, we are just going into our consciousness experience and creating continuously. To wake up and realize that you are not a victim, you are a creator, you are the orchestrator, you are the creator of your reality. You are a divine point of infinite creation. You're not your story, you're not the past, you're not whatever you think you are, you're not that. That's a thought. You're not a thought. Which thought are you? Why are you that thought and not that thought? Why are you not that thought and why are you that thought? Why are we any of these thoughts? No, we're not none of these thoughts. We've never been a thought. We're not a feeling. Why are we that feeling and not that feeling? It's like it starts to not make sense. The stuff we tell ourselves starts to not make sense. But you start to realize that we are that this, and what Sid was pointing to was wake up and realize you are the creator, and you'll discover God. You'll discover God. And like throughout time, Jesus was another man who came along and, in my opinion, was pointing directly to this. The King, the Father, I and the Father are one. I and God are one. Well, everybody's I. Everybody, we all describe ourselves as I, me. Not mine, me. Mine is ownership, and mine is my thoughts, my feelings, my jumper, my watch, my cup of tea, my laptop, my wife. That's ownership. And everything you look at, like my ego, no, it's mine, it's ownership. It's not me. Me, I, the real self is God. and you find that within. Be still and know that I am God. And that's what Sid was pointing to. And to me, it's like he brought all the wonderful things that I always wanted to exist in the world and in religion. I wanted there to be God. I wanted to be this, that, and the other. And he kind of brought it all together into a completely logical, friggin' hell. Yeah, well, that just makes total sense. I can't argue with anything you're saying. Cannot argue with anything you're saying. What you're saying is simple and true. But like I say, I think one of the things he would say is, I've not brought anything to this world. All I've brought is a means by which to articulate it in modern day language. So we don't have to listen through stories of stories in the Bible or anything like that, which are all tangled up with stories about Romans and other people's opinions and the word according to so and so, so and so. It's like, no, in our modern day language, a man woke up and, along with other men and women, you know, Sid's not on his own, and he knows that. He knew fine well that he woke up and realized and could articulate in such a way that many people heard. Because many people listen, but not everybody hears. In order to wake up, an individual has to be ready to wake up. And when they wake up, they'll understand what that means. Until that point, it'll just be annoying. They'll be going, I am ready, why have I not woken up? Well, the fact is you're already awake. We're just telling ourselves we're not. We're creating the illusion, we're creating the story that we're not. That's it. But yeah, Jen was better at describing that bit than me. But
Well, no, just the history.
yeah.
But there is a book that's quite interesting that just sort of, it's almost just like a historical kind of timeline, kind of key points.
Yeah, you go. Div has said 3 things. There are websites for this as well, sydneybanks.com, if you want to have a look. Anybody wants to look at Sid. And Sid said that his message is exactly parallel in Indian wisdom. What's that word say? Covered up with this.
Bhagavad Gita.
The Bhagavad Gita.
No, what's the be channeled in the
Yeah.
being channeled. Sorry,
Yeah.
wait, best channeled. Sorry, my cursor was over it and I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't read it. Computer user non-technical.
I guess I was just pointing to the fact that a lot of this wisdom was ever constant and present. It's just that we get clarified articulation through who we resonate, and Sydney Banks, in somehow or the other, using the tools of divine mind, divine consciousness, and divine thought, hit me at the right time, in the right place, in the right something. I lost it immediately. And somebody else might be hit by Krishnamurti, or somebody might be hit by somebody else. But what I'm just saying that Sydney Banks, the clarity and the groups we have around while we're alive, like you guys here, or anyone else, or Christine, or Keith Blevins, we have ability to converse, uplift ourselves, see through, laugh, cry, and it's present for us at the moment. At another time, it might be someone else. And lastly, that Gita, the Bhagavad Gita I'm mentioning, was very similar to things like I am you, that kind of thing, like I am God within you and la-di-da. But it was set in a battlefield where one despondent guy was having to fight his family. And he said, I can't do it. And this Godhead appears in the form of Krishna. And he said things very similar to Sydney Banks speaking, and all the more Sydney Banks being a welder sitting in Vancouver or wherever he was. You know what I'm saying? It just sort of came. That's why I use the word channel. So anyway, that's my 2 bits. Sorry.
No, thanks, Dave. I really appreciate that, mate. No.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people say, oh, this is nothing new. And it's just, Sid never said this was anything new. It's just the way that it came through him, the way that it was channeled through him, or what he realised around it.
but
But-
the newness exists within us. That's the
Yeah.
this is the point. Do you know what I mean? Like, is it new or is it old? Well, that's us creating that experience, you know. And if we want to hold on to that perspective, that egoic perspective, we're never going to hear, because we
Yeah.
think we already know. And like I say pretty much every week, it's not what we don't know that gets us into trouble and causes us our suffering. It's what we think we know that creates our suffering and torment.
Yeah. It's so easy for personal thought to take over in an instant. And next thing I've latched on to, oh, the words of the Gita say this, and Sydney Banks in The Missing Link say that, and this one say this and that. I've got this tendency, it's how I grew up, rote learning or something, you know, stuff it in your head or some, you know, and this one is exactly the opposite. Look for the freshness, feel the feeling, be present as you described beautifully, and converse. And I don't know, it's up for me, it's the anti-learning, the unlearning. I don't know how else to put it, to just allow this freshness, which isn't too often. I wish it was, but one thing I do know, that personal thinking, as Sid used the word contamination of personal thought or something, it can take over in 1 second. But the good news is we come out of it also, as you guys say, nothing is permanent. So thank you.
And you know, we often, the intellect gets such a knock in, and we want to, we've spoken about this a bit, haven't we? We want to really kind of knock that on the head. Let's not turn the intellect into some kind of malfunction or an enemy, because what you do have, if you were to say pick up The Missing Link or pick up the Bible or the Quran or whatever it be, you know, listening to somebody on telly, or I don't know, it could be anything, and something takes place within ourselves. That movement takes place within our consciousness. You know, the intellect is a wonderful tool, because I can ponder things. I can ponder and I can think, and I can become aware. Now, where I focus my attention, I get an experience of. Okay, so if I focus my attention purely on Colin, Jesus entered the waiting room. Do you think that's
I was wondering if it was
Wendy?
Wendy messing around, but
I bet it is.
I don't want to risk
I
it.
don't want to risk it. Sorry, Wendy, if that is you. Oh, that's thrown me again. But yeah, we have this gift of consciousness, and wherever we focus our attention, we get to have an experience. It's like Jen just before focused her attention on what was going on in her head, and then it was at the complete expense of the room and myself. You know, and you start to become aware that we can use our intellect in a very useful way. We can give it attention. We can give things attention, and where we give attention, we can, you know, we've all experienced this thing. How am I going to solve this problem? And you use your intellect and you focus your attention upon the problem and what your outcome that I want it to work like this. How the hell am I going to do it? How the hell am I going to do it? You set your intention. You use your intellect to try and picture it, to figure it out, and then some point you let go of it, and then 20 minutes later, half an hour later, 2 days later, a week later, all of a sudden this piece of information emerges. You could do it like that. Oh yeah, that would work. We've all experienced that. We've all experienced that. I've got this problem. How am I going to solve it? Oh, I could do that. You see, because we are so much bigger than we
It
can
wasn't Wendy.
comprehend. Who was it? It wasn't.
No, it was
Oh,
laughter.
Jesus.
That is how special Freedom Thinking Community Group is.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah. And we didn't let him in. No room for you in here, pal.
Well, you have to be careful now.
Yeah.
It's people pretending to be.
Yeah. All right, Sam, have you got your poem? I think we'll call it a day with Sam's poem, if that's all right with
If
everybody.
she's found
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I
Okay.
have found it. I can't put my camera on because I can't hold the phone at the same time. So, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So it's called The Gift.
You want to give a little bit of background or not?
Yeah, I mean it was written quite a few years ago. I kind of went through a bit of a personal heartbreak, and I seemed to find myself writing. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd write, and then I'd be in the car and I'd have to pull over the car and write. And it was just this whole experience of kind of going from heartbreak to kind of falling in love, heartbreak, and then kind of an awakening through that experience. And I didn't know it was going to be a book, but once I put it all together, it's like, oh, this would be a really nice poetry book. And so I self-published. It did okay at the time. I sold quite a few, and then I've kind of forgotten about it. It's on the shelf. Because I think that was 2018 maybe, so quite a while ago. And this poem Dave particularly loved. So he always asked me to read it, so I will. And yeah, it's towards the end of the book, and it's looking back on what we receive through sometimes what we don't want. So today I learned that gifts do not always come in pretty packages, with bows and ribbons full of sweet things and heaven scents. Sometimes they come in the form of people that break your heart. But these people may have shown you how to love again and to touch the tender places that have remained hidden for so long. When these precious gifts come, please cry your beautiful heart out. Lament in the sadness that you feel, but know that you have been broken open to love more deeply and to feel more tenderly, and to know that love is not only something that you receive, but it is what you are made of. And may you always remember that you can only be and will always be enough.
Nice, love. Thank you.
Welcome.
What's your book called?
Pourings of Love. It's still on Amazon.
By Samantha Hurst.
By Samantha Hurst.
Pourings of Love by Samantha.
Pourings of Love.
I'll put it in the description below.
Oh, thanks, darling.
Right, love.
No, I thought you were going to write down. You know who it's by.
I know.
In case you forget between now and like half an hour's time.
You know, mate. Right, everyone, let's call it a night. Again, if you want to make a donation, PayPal info@freedomthinking.co.uk is our PayPal ID. If you want to get in contact with us, info@freedomthinking.co.uk. Our website is crap, www.freedomthinking.co.uk.
We're on with changing it.
Yeah, we're looking to update,
Modernize
and update it. Yeah, hopefully next week, all being well, look out for us. Jesus might make a guest appearance again. We might have to turn him away. Yeah, all being well, next Monday we will be on again. So just thank you all for being here. Without you lot, this would be so boring, me and Jen just talking to ourselves. We do that anyway. So it's really nice to have you lot here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless, Steve.
Thank you. Love
God bless.
you.
Thanks, love you too. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
And keep an
Bye.
eye out for our retreat, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Look on Facebook or get in touch. info@freedomthinking.co.uk for any details that you need. Loads of love. God bless.